Just very quickly, Kim's in Visco in Bosnia. Hazel's in Perth, West Australia. Julie and Nigel are in Muscat, Oman. Pete's in Thailand.
Joanne is watching us from Moore Park in California. Andrew is watching from Kuwait on his iPad.
Amelie's in Taipei in Taiwan. Roy's in Johannesburg in South Africa. And Lizzie's in Dhahran in Saudi Arabia.
Good morning, or afternoon, or night.
Evening, yeah.
Depending on where you are.
Nice to have you all with us all across the globe.
Yes, brilliant, thank you.
Now, let's go through the papers, should we? With our senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson, and his much better half, former Conservative advisor, Claire Pearsall. Good morning to you both. Nigel, let's have a look at Financial Times. What's this budget duo before the election he's talking about?
Yeah, it's not a sort of tribute act or anything like that. It's an interesting sort of hint from Jeremy Hunt, where he says that he might be able to hold two budgets before the general election.
Oh, hooray.
In other words, you won't have enough headroom in the March budget to cut taxes as he wants, and he might try and squeeze another one in November. What's interesting about this is that it's kind of... I'm not sure whether he's trying to muddy the waters about an election date or whether it's giving us a clue that we're going to have to wait till next winter to have an election, which is obviously a bit unpleasant for people to have to go out canvassing in the snow and the wet.
I don't think I can wait.
Well, I mean, my view's been that they've been laying the groundwork for a May the 2nd election. It doesn't mean it would happen then, but that's kind of the direction they've been going in. So trying to get some tax cuts in March. We've already advanced the national insurance cut to January, so people would have 3 months in their pay packets before getting to election day. And the key thing will be a plane taking off to Rwanda, assuming that will ever happen. Even one plane with one migrant would actually fulfil Rishi Sunak's promise.
Not much it wouldn't, frankly. I mean, it would be so ridiculous.
Well, I think the whole thing's ridiculous anyway. Yeah, I think the whole plan is crazy and it won't work. But it would be a symbol if he was able to actually achieve that.
Well, be clutching at a straw to use that as a symbol.
Meanwhile, on that very plan, Claire, I mean, the PM was sort of warning the Lords, you have to do what the will of the people is, and the Lords saying...
Yeah, well...
Yeah. I mean, this was Rishi Sunak's strange conference of yesterday, where he got everybody all excited that there might be an announcement, and it was really just to show that his MPs had done as they were told and put the Rwanda bill through Parliament. I find it quite astonishing that the PM is calling this the will of the people, because it's not been put to any vote, it wasn't in any manifesto. He is an unelected Prime Minister in a lot of people's eyes. So to start going on about the will of the people and to ask the House of Lords, which is an independent scrutiny chamber, whether you agree with the House of Lords or not, it has a function. So I think to lay that down at their door and say in front of the nation, you need to do your duty, I think is a little bit much. But going on from what Nigel said, it does feel very much as if the May election is slightly more likely because the legislation now passes over to the House of Lords. It's going to have a pretty rough ride, and chances of it coming out unscathed, I think, are very, very slim. It would give the Prime Minister that message then to go to the country saying the Lords have thwarted me. Who do you want to run the country, the unelected chamber or the Conservative Party that will make a difference? So you can see those kind of battle lines being drawn. You can see the direction of travel for a May election. But it did feel very much like a party political broadcast yesterday with the election slogans coming out. I mean, we have months and months and months of this. Be prepared. This is all you're going to get. But the Lords will do what the Lords will do.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to delay it, aren't they, then?
Yeah, well, I think they are.
As much as they possibly
But their
can.
job is to actually scrutinise it. And you've got Lord Goldsmith, so a former Attorney General leading the charge for Labour. And what they want to do is, first of all, is this legal? I mean, there's a whole question mark about that. That Rishi Sunak has declared the fact that Rwanda is safe. Well, that's not what the Supreme Court said. And why have the facts changed?
Yes. Tell us about the next Horizon scandal.
This is an interesting one. It was a debate in the House of Commons yesterday, but what it is, it's over loan charge. And what HMRC have been doing is that some people were taking loans in lieu of salary. And it was being marketed by various companies and by accountants. And the idea was that it was all perfectly legal. And what HMRC is now saying is, no, it wasn't, that this was tax avoidance. And what they've been doing is clawing it back from the individuals concerned. But the way they've been doing it is very like the post office scandal. They've been going for the little people, the easy targets. Yeah. And so when they claw it back, they don't just say, oh, OK, we'll just take X amount this year and a bit more next year. They're making them pay everything back in 1 year that can go back to 2010. That means some people who would have, say, paid a 20p tax rate back then are paying at 45p. So
plus interest.
Pardon?
Plus interest.
Plus interest on top of that, yeah. I mean, they've been really hammering them. The result is that 10 people have committed suicide because of this. Another 11 have attempted it. Somebody else had an abortion because they didn't want to bring up a child when they had these tax demands hanging over them.
When they hadn't actually done anything wrong.
Well, I mean, it depends on the HMRC interpretation. Their argument was this was a way of avoiding tax.
Well, they should have said that closer to the time.
That's the point. What then happened was that they didn't say anything at the time. Then they started clawing it back, going back over 10 years. And the other thing is that what the MPs were really furious about yesterday was the fact they weren't going for the companies and the financial advisors who had been suggesting the scheme in the first place. So it was nurses, teachers. These are the kind of people, council workers, who were doing it. And they were told it was fine. It's an example of mis-selling. They were told it was fine. It wasn't fine. I think that everyone agrees that it wasn't. The irony is, had they just paid the tax on it, it would be the same as the fees they were paying the companies to run the scheme.
All right.
So HMRC have only gone for the companies in the last 3 years, while they've been going for these people, 60,000 of them, over the last 13 years.
I don't agree with it. You know, I really don't agree with it. If people are advised to do something and the HMRC is not stepping in at the time saying, no, this cannot happen, you've just got to write it off.
That's what I think. You know, I agree with you.
But they've done this before, haven't
they? They have, and this is what the MPs were saying yesterday, that they should write it off. And if there's any compensation due, it should come from those not the taxpayer, the companies who promoted those schemes.
We've only got a minute left. Can we have a quick look at the King?
And his tie.
Yeah.
His choice of tie.
Well, we felt that this was an interesting story, given the conversation about ties, but apparently the King likes to be bought ties that have a meaning behind them. So they have to be something special and personal. And I just think that's really lovely, considering if you're the King, you have very little choice in how you're going to dress. You've got to dress in a certain way. To have a little Greek flag or perhaps an elephant or dinosaur on your tie is your part of the
And
individuality.
he's been seen wearing these sort of peculiar...
Well, he has. I mean, the Greek flag tie was the most famous
And his
one.
nickname is C-Rex, so he has little sort of T-Rex dinosaurs on ties. I mean, if he likes making jokes, he ought to sort of meet Donald Trump with little Bidens on his tie or something like that. That would be quite good.
We've got to leave it there. Thank you.